Let me ask you a question that might unsettle you. What if I told you the most dangerous object in your wallet isn't a sharp blade, but a simple piece of plastic? This is not a metaphor. I speak from a place of hard-earned experience. That card was engineered not merely to facilitate your spending, but to fundamentally alter your perception of value, debt, and your own financial reality. I learned this lesson not in a business school lecture hall, but in the deafening silence of a 3 a.m. panic attack, the pale glow of a laptop screen illuminating a number that represented not just dollars owed, but years of my future freedom surrendered. My story, like so many, began with a tantalizing offer. I was 18, a college freshman, and the world was a catalog of new experiences waiting to be purchased. The credit card arrived in a sleek envelope, embossed with my name. It promised access, sophistication, and a safety net. A $500 credit limit felt like a fortune, a tangible reward for entering adulthood. That first purchase was electrifying. It was a textbook, perhaps, or a meal with new friends. The transaction was seamless. A swipe, a signature, a casual thank you. No physical cash left my hand. The psychological severance was immediate and profound. This is the first and most potent hidden cost of convenience: the cognitive disconnection. Behavioral economists have a term for the natural pang of reluctance we feel when parting with physical currency: the pain of paying. It is a built-in psychological brake on our spending impulses. The credit card, with its elegant design, performs a subtle yet radical surgery on that instinct. It removes the pain. The act of spending is decoupled from the act of losing. That piece of plastic is not money. It is a key, a token, a magic wand that conjures goods and services with a deferral of consequence. You are not spending today's money. You are borrowing from a nebulous, forgiving future version of yourself. The data, when examined, is unequivocal. Numerous studies have demonstrated that individuals, on average, spend significantly more, often between 10 to 20% more, when using credit versus cash. The convenience fee is extracted not from your account statement on that first bill, but from your judgment at the very moment of purchase. You upgrade your choices. You add the appetizer. You opt for expedited shipping. The barrier between want and have evaporates in the time it takes for a terminal to beep its approval. This is the silent behavioral tax levied by the system, and it is collected with every frictionless transaction. I remember the feeling of empowerment curdling into a quiet unease. The monthly statement was no longer a simple accounting, but a vague scorecard of a life being lived. The minimum payment was a laughably small number, a gentle suggestion that everything was under control. I was managing it. I was a responsible adult. I had successfully joined the system. The card lived in my wallet, a constant companion offering a whisper of reassurance. You can handle this. You deserve this. Spend now, worry later. But that whisper was a siren song. I was navigating the surface of a financial instrument whose depths I did not comprehend. The initial convenience, the perceived sophistication, the amplified spending power, they were all facets of a meticulously crafted lure. I had swallowed it whole. The hook, however, was still to be set. The real machinery of the trap, a mechanism of breathtaking mathematical and psychological sophistication, was just beginning to engage. And it all pivoted on a single, deliberately misunderstood figure printed on every statement: that deceptively gentle minimum payment. It was the gateway to the second and far more brutal hidden cost. If the first hidden cost was psychological, the silencing of your innate financial pain sensors, then the second is temporal. It is a theft of time, engineered through a mechanism so benign-looking that most perceive it as a courtesy: the minimum payment. This is where the seduction turns systemic. The minimum payment is not a helpful budgeting tool. It is a financial sedative, a carefully calculated amount designed to produce a specific devastating outcome, to keep you in debt for the maximum possible duration while ensuring the creditor extracts the maximum possible profit in interest. It is the central pillar of the credit card business model, and it is built on the quiet hope that you will misunderstand its function. Let us move beyond abstraction and into a concrete, visceral example. Imagine a moment of necessity, or perhaps of weakness. Your laptop, crucial for your work or studies, fails. A new one costs $3,000. You lack the savings, but you possess that piece of plastic with its available credit. You rationalize the purchase. The interest rate is 18 cents, not uncommon, perhaps even considered standard by some. You commit, believing you will pay it off aggressively. Then life intervenes. The statement arrives. The minimum payment due is a seemingly manageable $75. You exhale. You can handle this. You pay the minimum, intending to do more next month. But next month brings other expenses. You pay the minimum again. This pattern, the path of least resistance, becomes a habit. Now, observe the mathematics of that habit. If you were to pay only the minimum payment each month on that $3,000 debt at 18% APR, how long would it take to be free of it? The answer is not years, but decades. Specifically, approximately 17 years. And the total amount paid? Not $3,000, but over $6,000. You will have paid for that laptop twice over, and by the time you make the final payment, the technology will be a relic. The machine itself has a functional lifespan far shorter than the financial lifespan of the debt it created. This is the temporal cost. The system converts your present-day desire into a multi-decade financial anchor. That anchor then influences 1,000 unseen futures. It weighs on your cash flow month after month, year after year. It reduces your capacity to save for a down payment, to invest in a career change, to build an emergency fund. The debt becomes a silent, persistent partner in every significant life decision, advocating always for the safer, cheaper option, constraining your ambition and your freedom before you even consciously contemplate a move. This illusion of manageability is the trap's genius. It transforms a potentially catastrophic financial burden into a digestible monthly nuisance. The psychological relief of meeting that small obligation masks the monstrous growth of the long-term liability. You are not failing to pay off the debt. You are, by design, merely servicing it. You have become a source of recurring revenue. I lived this. I watched the statement balance yo-yo, but never truly plummet. I felt the faint pride of being current on my bills while remaining perpetually in bondage to them. The minimum payment was my benchmark for success, a line I dutifully towed, unaware I was running a race on a treadmill, not a track. And so, you might believe you have outsmarted the system. You tell yourself, I'm not that person. I pay more than the minimum. I'm in control. I thought the same. I believed my incremental overpayments were a mark of financial intelligence. They were not. They were merely slowing my descent into a deeper pit, a pit whose walls were lined with a third, even more insidious cost, one that operates in the shadows, shaping your destiny in markets and offices you never see. A cost measured not in dollars or years, but in opportunity itself. You may now believe you understand the trap, the behavioral nudge, the temporal sinkhole of minimum payments. But the system has a third, more pervasive layer, one that exists not in your wallet or your statement, but in the ethereal realm of data. This is the cost of your shadow self, your credit score and the profound, often hidden power it wields. Think of your credit score not as a simple grade, but as a financial avatar. It is a distilled, algorithmically generated version of you, a proxy used by institutions to assess risk, worthiness, and character. This avatar, however, has a perverse appetite. To be considered healthy and strong, it must be fed a consistent diet of one thing: managed debt. Herein lies the central paradox of modern consumer finance. To prove you are financially responsible, you must actively participate in and perpetuate the very system of borrowing. The score is meant to measure. The truly debt-free individual, the person who operates solely on cash, is often penalized with a thin file or deemed unscorable, a ghost in the financial machine. This is the third hidden cost, the cost of opportunity. Your three-digit score transcends the world of credit cards. It becomes a gatekeeper to the foundational pillars of a secure life. It directly influences the interest rate on your mortgage, which can translate to tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of a loan. It impacts the premiums you pay for auto and homeowners insurance in most states, a linkage that feels punitive rather than logical. It can be scrutinized by landlords deciding whether to rent you an apartment, and in some industries, by employers during the hiring process. A compromised score does not merely mean you pay more for money. It can mean you are denied access to housing, employment, or competitive financing altogether. Doors you never knew existed quietly close before you even approach them. The mechanisms of observation extend far deeper than payment history. Every transaction, once anonymized and aggregated, becomes a data point. The credit card network knows the merchant category codes of every swipe. They do not simply see a charge for $50. They see a pattern. Consistent purchases at high-end grocery stores, frequent transactions at fuel stations, recurring payments for premium services. All this information is analyzed, packaged, and sold. This data shapes the marketing you receive, the pre-approved offers that fill your mailbox, and the very credit limits and products you are offered. Your spending behavior is not private. It is a commodity used to further refine the traps and temptations placed before you. I experienced this cost not as a single shock, but as a series of quiet denials and elevated prices. The dream apartment that went to another applicant, the auto loan rate that was 2 points higher than advertised, the sense of being perpetually under review by an invisible jury. My financial avatar, marred by the missteps of my early credit life, was negotiating on my behalf, and it was a poor advocate. I was no longer just a person in debt. I was a person whose perceived reliability had been downgraded, whose future was now more expensive and constrained. This creates a chilling effect on financial mobility. The fear of damaging one's score can become a paralyzing force, preventing individuals from closing old accounts or restructuring debt in optimal ways for fear of a short-term numerical dip. The avatar's health becomes a priority that can, perversely, work against the individual's actual financial health. Thus, the trap is now fully formed. It captures your behavior at the point of sale, enslaves your future income through prolonged debt, and then uses the evidence of that enslavement to judge and limit your broader economic potential. Yet, even comprehending this tripartite system, you might still believe the cost is contained to fees and opportunities. You have not yet encountered the most personally devastating calculus of all, the systematic harvesting of your potential wealth, the direct transfer of your future security to the ledgers of others. This is the fourth cost, where the interest you pay ceases to be a fee and is revealed for what it truly is, a direct levy on the life you could have lived. We have navigated the psychological battlefield, the temporal prison of minimum payments, and the silent judgment of the invisible ledger. Now we arrive at the engine room of the entire apparatus, the mechanism of interest. To view it as merely a fee for borrowing is to misunderstand its profound transformative power. In the context of revolving high-rate consumer debt, interest is better understood as a freedom tax. It is a direct, monthly levy imposed on your future self, systematically draining your capacity to build wealth and security. The money paid as interest is not a transaction cost. It is capital permanently diverted from your own life's project. This realization demands a reframing of one of finance's most celebrated concepts, compound interest. We are rightly taught to revere its power for wealth creation. The earlier you invest, the more time your money has to grow exponentially, snowballing into significant assets. This is the virtuous cycle of building. Credit card debt, however, is the dark twin of this principle. It is compound interest in reverse, working with the same mathematical ruthlessness but against you. Every dollar of interest that is not paid immediately is added to your principal balance. The next month, you pay interest on that new higher balance. You are not just paying for the cost of the original purchase. You are paying interest on the accumulating interest itself. Your debt, left unchecked, begins to grow of its own accord, fueled by this negative compounding. Let us move beyond the abstract to a scenario that illustrates the catastrophic scale. Consider an individual who carries an average credit card balance of $5,000, a common, even conservative figure, at a 20% annual percentage rate. If they make only the minimum payments, this balance becomes a financial companion for over 2 decades. The total interest paid approaches or exceeds the original principal. But the true horror is revealed when we measure the opportunity cost. That $200, $500, or $1,000 paid in interest each year is not neutral. It is stolen potential. Take that same $1,000 annually. If, instead of being harvested as interest, it were invested in a broad market index fund, averaging a 7% annual return, a standard long-term benchmark, over 20 years, it would grow to approximately $43,865. That is not a trivial sum. That is a down payment on a home, a robust college fund for a child, or a substantial pillar of a retirement nest egg. The credit card balance did not just cost you the price of the goods and the interest. It cost you the entire future value of that capital. It cost you the home, the education, the secure retirement. The system has effectively executed a transfer of future wealth from your family to its shareholders. This is the fourth and most intimate hidden cost, the generational cost. The stress of persistent debt is not contained within a spreadsheet. It manifests as sleeplessness, as relational tension, as a pervasive background anxiety that colors every decision. It reduces your resilience in the face of emergency and limits your ability to provide assistance or create legacy for those who depend on you. You are not merely financing a past purchase. You are defunding your future and, by extension, the future of those you care about. I reached my nadir when this abstract math became personal reality. I was making good money, yet felt perpetually poor. I created a simple spreadsheet, not just of my debts, but of the projected future value of every interest payment I was making. The column showing what that money could have become, the investments not made, the security not built, was a portrait of a ghost life, a parallel universe of financial health I had willingly surrendered. The monthly interest charge was no longer a line item. It was a monthly invoice for the life I was not living. This is the core of the trap's final, devastating efficiency. It convinces you to trade a fleeting present convenience for a compounding future obligation, eroding your financial sovereignty one interest cycle at a time. You are mortgaging tomorrow to pay for yesterday, and the terms are usurious. Yet, within this bleak arithmetic lies the seed of liberation. For if the power of compound interest can be weaponized against you, the same immutable mathematical law can be reclaimed. The journey back begins with one radical, subversive question, a question the entire architecture is built to discourage you from asking. What if I stopped feeding the machine? What if I redirected every dollar of that freedom tax back to myself? The answer to that question is the first and most powerful step of the comeback. This is where the diagnosis ends and the treatment begins. Understanding the trap, the behavioral nudges, the temporal sinkholes, the shadow avatars, and the wealth-destroying mathematics is only half the battle. The other half is a deliberate strategic campaign to dismantle it. This is not about a performative act of cutting up credit cards in a fit of rage, though for some, that symbolic rupture is a necessary start. It is about a strategic demotion. You must transform your relationship with credit from one of passive dependence to one of active, skeptical mastery. The card must cease to be a payment first resort and become a calculated tool of last resort, its use governed by protocol, not impulse. The path forward is built on a fundamental mindset shift. You must abandon the question the system wants you to ask, can I afford the monthly payment? That question is the gateway to the minimum payment trap. It must be replaced with a more demanding, more empowering question. Can I afford the total cost of this with my own money right now? If the honest answer is no, then you cannot afford it with credit. This reframe places the burden of proof back on the purchase, not on the financing. With this mindset as your foundation, you implement tactical systems designed to rebuild your financial agency. These are not mere tips, they are behavioral countermeasures. The 48-hour rule. For any non-essential purchase above a predetermined threshold, enforce a mandatory 48-hour waiting period between the desire to buy and the act of purchasing. This simple buffer reinstates the cognitive deliberation that credit seeks to short-circuit. Often, the urge dissipates, revealing itself as fleeting emotion rather than genuine need. Statement shock therapy. Do not avoid your statement. Engage with it actively and deliberately. When the monthly bill arrives, do not just scroll to the minimum payment. Isolate the total new balance. Read the number aloud. Confront the reality of what you have spent. This practice consciously reconnects the psychological pain of paying that credit severs, making the abstract concrete once more. The debt avalanche method. If you carry multiple balances, order them by their annual percentage rate, APR, from highest to lowest. Commit to making minimum payments on all, but dedicate every spare dollar of repayment to the debt with the highest APR. This is a mathematical siege on your obligations, attacking the most expensive and damaging debt first. This method minimizes the total interest you will pay over time, accelerating your journey to zero. The zero-based budget. Before the month begins, assign a purpose to every dollar of your income. Categories include necessities, savings, investments, and discretionary spending. When the discretionary fund for dining out or entertainment is depleted, it is depleted. The credit card is not a backup. This system creates proactive boundaries, transforming your budget from a historical record of where your money went to an intentional plan for where it will go. The ultimate revelation, the final hidden cost we must name and reclaim, is your own financial agency. The convenience of credit asks you to outsource your judgment, your patience, and your foresight to a system engineered to profit from their lapse. The feeling of taking that agency back, of telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went, is the most profoundly empowering sensation in personal finance. It is the moment you transition from being a subject of the financial system to becoming its architect. My journey out of that 3 a.m. panic was neither linear nor easy. It was a series of small, stubborn decisions. One resisted impulse buy, one extra payment applied to principal, one budget reviewed and revised. I documented every painful step, every setback, and every hard-won victory. I did this not for catharsis, but for a simple reason, so that you do not have to start in the dark. This narrative we have shared is merely the first chapter. The map is useless without the territory, and the territory of financial recovery is best navigated with a community. On my YouTube channel, Credit Comeback Stories, we move beyond theory. We are not a dry academic finance channel. We are a collective of individuals actively rewriting their financial narratives. We deconstruct real-life debt traps, celebrate authentic comeback victories, and provide the practical, tactical blueprints to guide you from where you are to where you deserve to be. Your comeback story does not begin with a large sum of money. It begins the precise moment you decide the hidden costs, the behavioral tax, the stolen time, the closed doors, the plundered future, are no longer acceptable. It begins the moment you choose to reclaim your agency. Subscribe to Credit Comeback Stories on YouTube. Activate the notification bell. In our community, you will find the clarity, the strategy, and the support to turn that decision into irreversible action. Your future, the one you own, free and clear, built on your own terms, is the most valuable asset you will ever possess. It is worth fighting for. Let us begin building it together.